Okay, 1 second.
Madam Mayor, you need to hit video. There you go. See your smiling face now.
Thank you.
1 second.
Good morning, Madam City Councilor.
Okay, we're ready to go.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2025 annual operating plan for the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. This meeting is held in accordance with the provisions of ordinance number 49318, approved March 2nd, 1959, which states in part, the Board of Estimate and Apportionment shall review the proposed budget with the heads of departments and other agencies and hold at least one public hearing thereon after giving at least 5 days notice in the City Journal. The required notice was published in the St. Louis City Journal on Tuesday, April 9th and 16th in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch on Monday, April 8th, 2024. We will take testimony from all those who emailed Ms. Shannon Davis, the Board of E&A Secretary, by the time designated, which was yesterday by noon. And I will call on you. We will do 2 minutes. Shannon, is that 2 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Shannon will be the timekeeper. And Shannon, do you have like a something to hold up when there is 30 seconds left or?
Yes, ma'am. So once they are at 1 minute, I would do like this.
Okay.
Once they get to 30 seconds, I would do like this so they can wrap it up. Once they run out of time, I would do like this.
Okay.
And their time is over.
All righty. So if you're testifying, everybody watch Shannon. And once time is over, Shannon, will you please also let them know their time is up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All righty. First to speak, or first signed up is Mr. Jerry Connelly. Mr. Connelly, will you you can come on camera and unmute. I'm sorry, Mr. Connelly, before you begin, quick reminder, if you are here to testify on the budget and you have, and your name has not been called, please turn your cameras off and stay on mute.
So do I need to be sworn in here?
No.
Okay, very good. Mayor Jones, Comptroller Green, President Green, thanks for the opportunity to speak today. Quick clarification point. I believe in the email, it said 3 minutes when the speaker email was sent out yesterday. So appreciate if someone could verify whether it's 2 minutes or 3 minutes. I wanted to focus my comments on transparency and particularly with two main areas, with the Board of E&A, with the posting of meeting notices, and with the St. Louis Development Corporation. Although we're here with a kind of charter mandated public hearing, I believe that most of the meetings E&A holds are violating the Sunshine Law because the meeting exhibits and resolutions are not available to the public, and the only way the public can obtain them is via Sunshine request. And I urge you as a board to stop that practice and conform with the Sunshine statutes and make that information available. We're unable to know what you're voting upon. Every meeting, there are usually contracts and leases, transfers of funds, and we are in the dark as to the decisions being made. We've made a lot of progress, or you've made a lot of progress in terms of posting meeting videos on YouTube. SLDC now has all their meetings on YouTube, which I very much appreciate. However, there are a couple of omissions. The Airport Commission is not posted, and the Affordable Housing Commission meetings, although they're accessible via Zoom, neither of those bodies have their meetings shown. So I think all city entities need to have their meetings up on the YouTube channel. Regarding St. Louis Development Corporation, I think there's a few areas of concern that would be remedied by some of their incentive programs going through the Board of Aldermen rather than decisions just been made by the LCRA board. One of those includes a sales tax exemption on construction materials. Those programs need to go through the Board of Aldermen. Right now, we've got a situation where SLDC has been collecting fees for.
Connelly, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, again, quick reminder, if you are here to testify on the budget and your name has not been called, please turn your camera off and stay on mute. Next is Caitlin Dorian. Caitlin Dorian.
Hi, I'm trying to turn my video on and it won't allow me.
Okay, well, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Caitlin Dorian. I am a city resident and serve as the manager of the Dutchtown Opportunity Coalition for Youth, also known as DOCCY, one of the many programs offered by Employment Connection to reduce violence in our community. DOCCY works to engage high-risk youth, ages 10 to 17 in the Dutchtown, Mount Pleasant, Graveway Park neighborhoods, and represent a partnership between Employment Connection, Thomas Dunn Learning Center, and Jean Slay Girls and Boys Club. These neighborhoods have the highest population of youth compared to any other neighborhood clusters here in St. Louis City. After the nearly 2 years our program has been in operation, we continue to see the need for initiatives that the Office of Violence Prevention supports, as we currently have 114 youth on our caseload who we provide referral, case management, and positive life experiences for. I'd like to share a quick story. During spring break of this year, I was contacted by one of the parents of my clients. Her 17-year-old daughter was involved in a situation with a stolen car and was being held at the juvenile center. Mom was at a loss because her daughter needed to be enrolled in an education program, but was not allowed to return to St. Louis Public Schools. After lots of talking and strategizing with Mom, we came up with a game plan to assist her in continuing her education, counseling to help in the recovery from domestic violence and experiencing gun violence, and a plan for employment. Unfortunately, her story is not unique or uncommon for the kids that we work with. Another barrier our kids have shared is their inability to travel through specific neighborhoods at the risk of being caught by a representative of an opposing neighborhood. Something as simple as walking to a great event hosted by a well-intended organization may be as impossible as leaving the country for many of our kiddos. The Office of Violence Prevention helps organizations like ours create opportunities for high-risk youth and their families, and we hope to continue to grow our partnership with them moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Shannon, did your email to the people who are going to testify say 3 minutes or 2 minutes? Do you remember?
It might have stated 3 minutes.
Okay, we will hold our word there and make sure we do 3 minutes.
Yes,
sorry. My apologies to those who had 2 minutes. Next, we will hear from Paula Gartner. Is it Gartner? Paula Gartner.
Gertner, either one.
My
Gertner.
apologies.
No, that's okay. Thank you for having us. I want to, there we go.
There you go.
I want to start by saying how much I have appreciated working with Office of Violence Prevention in this past year with our Prop S funding. They have been a breath of fresh air as a department to work with, even through all of taking on Salesforce, the software, and the changes along the way in the past year. It was refreshing from any government office across the country to work with them because it was a true teamwork effort. They wanted to make sure that they got it right, that the data was right, that they were collecting the right information, that we as providers were giving them the right information. And I just found that very refreshing because it was true teamwork, and hopefully look forward to working with them in the future. OVP understands the foundational issues to raise up our young adults. They understand the need for young adults to have a place of their own to just be, and they understand the need for education of our young adults. Here at Thomas Dunn Learning Center, those are two of the areas that we've really concentrated on. We love the parties and the events and the after school and stuff too, but I know for my children, for your children, for our own children, they just need a place to be sometimes where they feel ownership. And then, of course, we've got to give them that foundation of education, and through tutoring, high school equivalency, and even programs like What's Next, in giving them the guidance of what they choose to do after high school, are all very critical in keeping them in a violent-free community. And that is it, short and sweet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paula. Next is Christine Fahey.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First, I wanted to tell you about myself and my role at the Family Court Juvenile Division. I am the Chief Deputy Juvenile Officer over Special Services, and these are the delinquencies that handle youth that have committed crime in the city of St. Louis, ages 17 and under. We handle formal and informal cases where evidence is sufficient and taken to court, and cases that aren't taken to court, but the family and or youth need services. We provide services to the whole family. I have been working with the Office of Violence Prevention since its inception. I am part of the Community of Violence Intervention and the Office of Violence Prevention monthly meetings, and they promote and coordinate a well-resourced support system. This allows me to have access to community partners, have monthly updates, crime incident data, and information on the challenges and barriers encountered by these funded organizations. They provide me with good feedback from the community in specific neighborhoods. These meetings also provide me with information about activities for our youth in the different neighborhoods that I can share with my staff. Most recently, the court has entered into a memorandum of understanding between the St. Louis City Mental Health Board, the St. Louis City Office of Violence Prevention, the St. Louis City Metropolitan Police Department, and the Youth Advocate Program. This program specializes in servicing at-risk and high-risk youth with complex needs. The advocate will work closely with the assigned deputy juvenile officers that are under my supervision. They provide intense, unconditional support through a wraparound model. While this program is fairly new, I can say the court has already seen the benefits of having this program. And I wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Christine. Next, Keenan Morrison. Don't see Keenan on the list here. Let's see. Mr. Morrison is stuck in the other room. So can someone move him to a panelist, please?
I got it.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Morrison, you're on.
Hello, greetings. My name is Keenan Morrison. I am the founder and CEO of The Village. We are a boys mentoring program. We mentor young Black males ages 6 to 18 all throughout the St. Louis region. And we've been doing this for 9 years. And what we do is we mentor both on Saturdays. We mentor in the school systems in partnership with our school districts. And we also have a fantastic caregiver committee that is making space for the parents of the youth that we serve. And this is really a wraparound service that we are proud of. And I am here to thank the Office of Violence Prevention for their funding and for their support through the Prop S grant last year. It was instrumental in the expansion of our program to allow us to engage these young men, not only on Saturdays as we explore the city and take them all over the place, but even more showing them that their education and us being able to show up in that classroom is vital. And so without that funding, we would not be able to increase our impact, not only on the young men, but the entire household that supports them. And so so we're grateful for that. And we have also continued this partnership. And through Office of Violence Prevention, we've been able to meet a lot of other organizations that are doing great work in this city as well. So I applaud the current administration and respectfully everybody on the call for the intentional shifts in funding and focusing on the needs of the city. And I look forward to the rebalancing of the city, because the truth is that you can't improve one part of your body. Your entire body has to raise up together, and that's what we have to do as a city. And since you gave me that extra minute, I would also like to shout out the SLDC and the focus on their funding in North St. Louis. Me personally, it allowed me to have some much needed improvements on my 130-year-old home. And again, what Neil Richardson and what they're doing over there is going to have a huge impact, because as a city, we have to grow together. Thank you all for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with you all more. Have a good day.
Thank you, Keenan. Next is Chris Wilcox. While Mr. Wilcox is joining me, I'll give another reminder. If you're here to testify on the budget, please go on mute and keep your camera off until you are called. Chris Wilcox.
Hi, it looks like it's not letting me put the camera on.
I understand. There you are.
There you are.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Chris Wilcox. I live in the 14th Ward. And I'm here to join my friends and comrades in calling to defund the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, focusing specifically on ShotSpotter, Real-Time Crime Center, and SWAT. The budget shows the city's priorities, and last year's budget spoke quite clearly. The city spends 1 penny on human services for every dollar spent on police. Last year, it no longer bothered to spend that penny, and the result was obvious. Last year, we had a record 12% increase nationwide in homelessness. And the city's response to that was to elevate its violent campaign against our unhoused neighbors, instead of using funds to provide services. The city had conducted a number of raids, one of which was right outside City Hall, where they put those gates up that say closed for restoration, presumably because there was no such restoration. And it's the apparent reason that they were removed from City Hall was because the Vice President, Kamala Harris, was coming to visit that weekend. And the result was obvious. People simply had to find somewhere else to go because there is no shelter or housing to be had or to be offered to people. And these raids have continued since then. And the result is not going to end homelessness. And what is going to do is instead to visit increasing violence on some of our most vulnerable neighbors in our city. And what needs to be done is that we have the place where that money can come from, and that is the police department, which is a whole third of the general fund, and courts, and where the city has quite a generous budget, but most of it is focused on controlling its citizens rather than helping them. And the result has been a police department that has been ever present, spending all of its time protecting property, being loss prevention for large corporations like Schnucks, instead of having those resources go in ways that actually help our most vulnerable neighbors who need it now more than ever, especially with the dramatic decrease in public benefits, including 18 million people being kicked off of Medicaid. So I ask that the city reorder its priorities on helping people instead of policing them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Next, Robin Brown.
Alrighty, I think I'm ready to go. Greetings, everyone. Wishing everybody a blessed and prosperous and purposeful day today. I'm here to be in support of having additional funds allocated to the city's animal shelter. I am currently a neighbor of Old North St. Louis, been here for like 16 years. I'm also the board president for the Old North Restoration Group. Most of the time, I'm focusing on development here in Old North St. Louis. The rest of the time, I'm actually spent rescuing animals that are being dumped here in North City. In recent years, the dumping of the animals and the loose animals, stray animals that are in the neighborhood have increased dramatically. I've been known now to be buddies with the pit bulls due to that's just how many I'm actually rescuing, contacting animal shelters, contacting rescues and things to try to get supports and help. Unfortunately, many times I've did CSBs and contacted animal control, and I've been told multiple times that unfortunately we're on a hold, so we're not able to take in the dog that you were found running stray in your neighborhood. I've partnered with many different organizations and animal rescues throughout St. Louis City and actually throughout Missouri now. And one of my neighborhood business owners is actually here, and she actually currently have one in her backyard that from about a month or so ago when we contacted animal control and they came out, scanned the dog, it had no chip, and they said, unfortunately, the shelter is full, so they're not able to take it. I really want the money allocated so that they can have a better, more functioning facility for these animals. We are doing great to build up St. Louis. We're doing great with development in North City and other surrounding neighborhoods. But unfortunately, when you have stray animals roaming the neighborhoods and there's nowhere to put them, even if services are requested and asked for, it's unfortunate. I've been on the highways, keeping animals from getting hit up and down Highway 70. I've actually been out with animal control, whereas I was trying to rescue another animal. I got blocked off by 2 more animals in O'Fallon Park, and I was told at that time it was at least 13 dogs, unfortunately, in the park that they knew of that was roaming free in the park. So I'm asking and I'm appreciating and thankful, but if we can get more resources for animal rescue and for stray animals in St. Louis City, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Again, Ms. Sanders, you have not been called yet. Can you go back on mute and turn your camera off?
That's fine. Thank you.
Next up is Katie DeSelm. I'm sorry, I'm reading really small print here.
Yeah, thank you. Are you seeing me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for having me and hearing me. I'm a community mental health worker with BJC, and I just wanted to talk about a need that is kind of the biggest thing that I'm seeing with affordable housing. The homeless people, the statistics have risen and they continue to rise, and housed people are not having the money that they need to afford the rent. So instead of focusing on mental health goals and things like that, where the clients can flourish, it's basically turned into a housing crisis, trying to find people a place they could afford, a place they can go. And it's kind of where that's the majority of my job now, trying to figure out housing. And I was just wanting to request part of the budget go toward affordable housing. Kind of housing first models have been really successful in Houston, where instead the shelters can create kind of a problem in themselves. And it'd be nice to have more homes for people to go to, as well as more affordable things for people that are on that verge where they just had a $500 increase in their rent. They've never been homeless, but now they're facing that situation for the first time. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Next, Larry Marshall.
Hello, my name is Larry Marshall. I am a community organizer with FCC, also a community health worker. As a resident of St. Louis, I not only a resident, but also as a community organizer, community health worker, working in the field, working with amongst the people. I have seen a lack of resources, with a abundance of policing and abundance of punitive systems that are, instead of redirecting those punitive systems or those punitive punishments, I feel like we should be directing some of those funds to more resources, more housing, more education, better healthcare. There is a need for that, and it's just not enough funding for those places in St. Louis, and redirecting those funds to the proper need, and coming up with strategizing, coming up with ways to help the citizens of St. Louis outside of policing them or incarcerating them, and finding creative ways to prevent crime, which would be education, health, housing, things like that. I feel the budget will definitely be more beneficial toward those issues than just keep continuing to bring more funds to the police department when crime is steady going up, when homelessness is steady going up, and that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Next, Sal Martinez. I don't see Sal in either room, so hopefully he joins later and we're able to come back to him. Okay. Next, Fatima Kamara.
Good
Please
morning.
begin. Go ahead. Good
Good
morning.
morning. My name is Fatima Kamara. I'm the housing justice organizer at Action St. Louis, and I also work on the We the Tenants campaign, which is held by Action St. Louis and Arch City Defenders. This winter, we worked with residents of Heritage House. About 200 folks were displaced from Heritage House this winter. And we worked with about 100 of those who were living in hotels. The hotels were paid for. However, most of the residents had a lot of other needs that were not being paid for. For instance, people were saying that they were paying as much as $30 to pay for meals at hotels. They were paying for application fees that they could not afford. And a lot of them had to rely on a service for seniors to pay for deposits that otherwise they would not have been able to afford to live somewhere new. Heritage House, the pipes burst because of extreme cold, and that is why folks were displaced. And as we live through climate change, we'll have more and more severe weather and extreme weather, which is why I request that there be $500,000 allocated to an impacted tenants fund for tenants who are displaced when their rental units were not upkept properly by the landlord, which is what happened at Heritage House. The pipes had burst before and they were not adequately repaired. There's currently $100,000 allocated in the bill, but that wouldn't even be enough if another building were to close. It would not be enough for one single building. So we have asked that there be $500,000 allocated for the impacted tenants fund. We the tenants also recently released a housing report that indicates that St. Louis is majority renters rather than homeowners. and that 44% of renters are rent burdened, which is why I asked that there be a sufficient amount allocated to a renters assistance program or rental assistance program like we had during the more widespread parts of the pandemic, because that also will, help with the fact that folks are not able to afford their rent. Wages are stagnant. We know inflation is high, and that will help ease that rental burden. And then finally, I wanted to request that the $1.85 million allocated for the the right to counsel for renters facing eviction program be kept in the budget. As I've said, we are a renter majority city, and renters are rent burdened at the moment. So we know that many are facing eviction. I've been to the courts recently. There are a lot of people facing
Ms.
eviction. A lot
Kamara,
of people.
for your time. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Next, Tracy Stanton.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tracy Stanton. I am newly resident of the 1st Ward, but was a resident of the 5th Ward for a very long time. I'm also the Director of Movement Building and Storytelling with the Freedom Community Center. But I have served several roles at this organization since its inception in 2021. So that's Healing Support Specialist, Community Organizer, and now the Director. And in this role, we have spent the last 3 years since June of 2021 having bi-weekly community organizing meetings literally every month up until today, to this current moment. And we have engaged hundreds, if not thousands, of community members around what they would like to see in their community. So first, I just want to speak again to the accessibility of this whole process. Having the budget presentations done only on Zoom in the middle of the daytime where people are at work, and even having this meeting right now on a Friday at 10 a.m. when people from the community do not have an opportunity to come and voice their opinions if the community organizations that do grassroots work do not invite them here. And I understand that this budget process has been the same for a lot of years, but it's not promoted just like if, an elected official was running for a campaign. So I first just want to encourage you all to be just as invested in making sure that there's community input and accessibility for this process as you are with ensuring that you get into office. So I specifically not going to take up a lot of time. I want to speak directly to the $1 million increase in the juvenile detention center for the 14 added positions, as well as the $1.7 million increase to the Office of Circuit Attorney to address the filing of staff positions, as well as the decrease of $3.6 million from the Corrections Division due to the reduction of 7 vacant positions. I just want to acknowledge that that is over like $7.6 million. And I don't know if you all have been doing your due diligence with researching things like Kansas City, which just launched a pre-arrest diversion center that they allocated, I believe, like $1.6 million to this center, which focuses on all of the things that Health and Human Services focuses on. And of course, I am a part of the Defund, Re-Envision, Transform campaign. So we're always asking for defunding St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. With that $7.6 million, we could have 2, 3, 4 of those centers. And while I understand that the Office of Violence Prevention is providing resources and funding to community organizations that are doing the work, we can be more creative around things regarding the health, the humanity, and the mental support services of our communities. In addition to what Chris Wilcox stated around the homelessness, which is not a crisis. And the fact that we wait every year to—
Ms. Stanton, thank you. Your time is up. Thank you for your testimony today.
Of course. I'll be back.
Next, Julie Gary.
Good morning.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, how are you, Mayor Jones? This morning I'm coming to talk to you guys.
Stanton, please go turn your camera off. Thank you,
Good
Julie.
morning. My name is Dr. Julie Gary. I am the Bureau Chief for Behavioral Health for the City of St. Louis. I am here today to talk to you about the impact that the money that we've had here designated to us this last year in our first year of operation has impacted the St. Louis community and has allowed us to work on things that are vital to and have been mentioned already on this call by other callers in regards to homelessness, mental health, jail diversion. From the last caller, I really appreciate those concerns as well. So the budget that we received through the Public Health Trust, in addition to ARPA funds and opioid settlement funds, have led us to be able to focus on 275 linkage to care calls for citizens in our community who needed substance use and mental health treatment. Over 2,500 doses of Narcan distributed to our community, in addition to the purchase of Narcan boxes, which will be placed in our high overdose areas across the city. Participation in over 140 outreach events with focus on those areas that are high overdose areas, and the awarding of over $1.6 million to organizations doing the critical behavioral health work in our community. I'd like to also just focus on the fact that some of that work is being done in the Justice Center and in the Circuit Attorney's Office. As a matter of fact, this afternoon from 2 to 4, we will be training the public defenders in the Circuit Attorney's Office, in addition to the jail diversion program, on crisis response and burnout and self-care for those attorneys. Some of the community partners that have been impacted by our funding are Haven, Living in Victory Recovery Homes, E. Rise Williams and Associates, who focuses on LGBTQIA and HIV, Behavioral Health Network, ARCA, who has a mobile van that does substance use and mental and medication-assisted treatment for those in recovery, Grow STL, and Restorative Justice Movement, who's involved in people re-entering our community. There is kind of this unprecedented synergy of mental health, violence prevention, and grassroots work by our community partners that has been impacted by the funding we've received during the last year. And that for our community is being seen as a beacon of hope. In addition, related to employment, education, and housing, for the first time ever, we have a community health improvement plan action team focused on the intersection of economic mobility and health that is being impacted by this funding, plus other funding from the St. Louis Development Corporation. So I just want to emphasize that this funding in the last year has had a huge impact on us and our ability to do work that truly impacts our citizens, and that will continue to impact that work going forward. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Gary. Next, Lee Harkins. I don't see Lee Harkins on either of the participants or attendee list. So hopefully they will log back in and we will take their testimony at the end if we see them there. Moving ahead, Williams, Mr. or Miss Williams. Is that Bobby Williams?
Hi, Mayor Jones. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Unfortunately, my camera is not working today.
No problem. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm the Bureau Chief of Family, Community, School Health here at the City of St. Louis Department of Health. And I just want to talk about how important the ARPA funds are for our maternal and child health program. As many of you already know, the St. Louis March of Dimes released its 2022 report and gave Missouri a grade D, a D as in dog, for preterm birth rates. Here in Missouri, we have an 11.3% preterm death rate. That's higher than the national average of 10.6%. And we know for Black women, it's even higher. It's double that. So we're really looking to use these ARPA funds to do evidence informing and also evidence-based approaches to really combat this. We know that the death rates right now was given for 2022 by the same report was 5.5 per 1,000. That is unacceptable. For Black women, it was almost twice that at 11.2%. And then as we get into pregnancy-related mortality ratio, the story doesn't get better. It gets more dire. For Missouri, it was 33 per 100,000 live births. There was a death associated. For the national average, it was 32.9. So we were slightly higher for the state than we were for the national. But even for Black women, it was 87.6 per 100,000 live births. Again, that is just unacceptable. That's 4 times higher than what it is for white women at 21.9. So this ARPA funding for our MCH program is very vital. We're looking to invest in doulas and other supportive services that will help encourage and help to give assurance that our mothers are well taken care of, and also our newborn babies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bobby. Next, Amber Cole. Amber Cole, I saw in the attendees. Tony, can you move Amber to the panelists, please?
Okay, she should be coming in now.
Thank you. Okay, Amber Cole. You can unmute and come on camera. We would love to hear your testimony.
It seems like it's not working.
Okay, if your camera's not working, we can still hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, good morning, Mayor Jones, and the rest of the A&E. Thank you for this opportunity. Although some of the individual did speak on the deliverance of giving the information for this meeting, it didn't work for giving 1 day, 1 or 2 days to let the community know. Into some of the projects that I was appalled when I was looking at the St. Louis area on aging, where it's a zero amount for supportive service, home delivery meals. Maybe it's in another area that I'm missing, but I would like to see more attention to our seniors and those in aging. I would like to see more housing for our seniors in the north side. North Corridor is very little housing for those that want to stay in the community, even if they give up their homes. I applaud I like to see more attention to our park rangers and our marshals, especially our parks on O'Fallon, because during the summer months is totally ridiculous over there. So more money needs to be done on that. I like to keep Spot Fire and Sky Cops, because although some people say that it doesn't help, but it does. Experiencing that. I question if Soulard Market is getting money from Parks and Recreation, also their own pot. So I didn't understand that. I like to see more money in municipal court for it's getting parking for staff, low-level staff. I don't see that as an initiative for the low level, if you want to say that, low level or entry level people, not giving no incentives, because if they want to park inside someplace, majority of their funding for their income will go into parking. So I would like to see parking incentives for those in municipal court, as well as a raise for entry-level staffing. I know we get a 1% raise. However, based on some of the other departments, I don't see it. And I believe we worked hard and we've been very faithful of not turning over. You have some very experienced people that work for municipal courts. I'm taking my time to during my break to give my testimony. So it's many other opportunities I would like to address, and maybe I'll put it in a written form, but thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. Next, Justin Hauser. You're on mute. We
Oh.
still can't hear you. Okay.
We'll
there-
try it a third time. Great. Thank you for your patience. Good morning, Mayor Jones, Comptroller Green, and members of the board. My name is Justin Hauser. I work in the Environmental Health Bureau at the Department of Health, and I want to provide some high-level information on the critical impact of the ARPA funding that's been appropriated to the Animal Care and Control section. Most notably, the contract award for the city animal shelter vendor received a $200,000 increase from previous awards. This was to help support the overwhelming surge in pets that are cared for and housed at the city shelter. We've also utilized over $5,000 to complete a desperately needed floor repair project at the shelter. The condition of the floor was a concern that had been identified in multiple inspections from the Missouri Department of Agriculture, and if not completed, it had the potential to jeopardize the animal shelter license that we hold for operation of the city shelter. We also have been able to allocate funds to help replace several outdated animal control vehicles. These are 2005, 2006, and 2007 model year trucks that are now scheduled to be replaced with newer and better outfitted vehicles to support the animal care and control officers out in the community. ARPA funding has also been provided for resources for eligible residents, such as tie outs and dog houses, and these help keep pets in their homes and out of the city shelter. With those high-level remarks, I will thank the board for the opportunity to speak and will end my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Next, Maya Lee.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Cool. All right. Hi, my name is Maya Lee, and I work here in the city in the 9th Ward as a community organizer with the Freedom Community Center. We are a Black-led organization founded to dismantle systems of oppression that inflict harm and trauma on Black communities in St. Louis City, particularly the police and criminal punishment system. We practice transformative justice at FCC by seeking to respond to harm and violence without creating more harm and violence. This means addressing the root cause. What we have come to understand as crime often stems from an unmet need. In St. Louis, a lot of people are fighting to survive with their needs unmet. This is the result of the city not investing in its people. Instead, St. Louis City chooses to overinvest in systems of policing to criminalize those trying to meet their needs without adequate institutional investment. This can be seen in a city budget that spends less than a penny on health and human services for every dollar that is spent on policing. If we understand a budget as a moral document, then it becomes painfully clear that St. Louis values police and punishment over meeting the needs of its people. I urge you all as elected officials to reconsider criminalizing people with unmet needs. Instead, invest in meeting those needs. Providing people with resources and opportunity will fundamentally shift a culture of locking people up instead of supporting them. Let's take the steps to address the 40% of St. Louis public school students living at or below the poverty line, ensure their families' basic needs are met, and provide programming for children instead of increasing the budget for juvenile facilities to criminalize impoverished children and their families. Putting kids in cages is not going to keep the city safe. Investing in creating opportunities to rise out of poverty is the change we need to see for real public safety in St. Louis. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Evan Pardue. Evan Pardue. I see you there, Evan. Can you come off mute? Okay, Evan Pardue. Okay, we'll come back to you, Evan. Jake Lionfields. Jake Lionfields. I don't see Jake anywhere. So maybe we'll come back to that person as well. Janet Sanders. I know Janet Sanders is here.
I know, I'm sorry. for busting in a couple of times.
No, that's
So-
okay.
Being kind of disorganized. Thank you, Mayor Jones and all other officials. I'm here to talk about the extra million, I believe it is, for the animal care in the city. I live in Hyde Park. And the various quick things to say is that I've seen the impact of the programs for spay and neuter. It's huge, particularly my experiences with Carroll House. The spay and neuter is free to city residents. It's amazing. It's so well run. It has an impact. I feed over 60 feral cats at different locations between Old North and Hyde Park. All those cats are all being trapped and neutered. There is a cessation of billionis of kittens. Not only that, but residents really appreciate seeing the care taken of the animals. They like lifts their spirits a bit. You know, they see it as a positive thing. And so in that way, if we can bring a better standard for animal care, because we are overwhelmed with dogs and animals on the street, to the extent that residents are, you know, holding on to the animals because there's no room in the shelters, and the shelters are way overburdened. But as long as the spay and neuter is not keeping up with the need, the shelters are going to be full. So the spay and neuter is critical. But this business of caring for animals and not having them just sort of run around starving, you know, loose, if there is a better standard of care for the animals, I think has a positive impact on people. That you know, it helps people feel better about their community and better about themselves. I mean, let alone that the relationships with animals can be very helpful, especially in areas where we've got a lot of trauma, a lot of difficulty. So I think that's you know, just to emphasize it, that residents of all walks of life are doing so much on the street, catching strays, you know, feeding the animals, waiting for time to get, you know, waiting for openings in the shelters. So we're actually doing a lot on the ground, and there are a lot of people that care about the animals, and other residents really appreciate that. So any amount of support that can go into particularly spay neuter, free accessibility for people in the city. They certainly take advantage of the program at Carroll House. It's kind of mind-blowing to go through that event, so well organized and so needed by people, and to help with the shelter overloads. So that's my.
Okay.
Did you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, did you hear?
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your testimony today.
Okay, thanks a bunch.
Ms. Davis, I did receive your note about the additional panelists, and they will go last.
Yes, ma'am.
Next, we're gonna try Evan Pardue. There you are, Evan.
Yeah, sorry, I was moving before, so I had to find a spot to sit down at.
Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, so I'm gonna try to be quick today, but one of the main things that I think the city should focus on in the next upcoming budget is to increase funding to our recreation division, specifically to expand programs for youth in the city, and also to renovate and improve the public rec centers. I think this is essential because you know, youth and adults alike, you know, need common spaces so that they can get together and engage in activities that aren't, like, you know, cost prohibitive. And so that's one thing. Another thing that I think the city really needs to focus on is expanding funding for homeless services, specifically increasing funding for people to increase our shelter capacity. Me and some of my colleagues for the past 2 years or so have been doing homeless outreach, and we have essentially found that, you know, the homelessness crisis in St. Louis has just gotten worse since the pandemic has started, and there are very little resources provided by the city that's like going to fix this issue. And so I think that's another thing that the city needs to focus on in this budget. And lastly, I think I'll just reiterate a couple points from people that commented previously. So for Fatima, I also agree with her that we need to increase funding for the Impacted Tenants Fund. Because like she was saying, the people at the Heritage House have been displaced for months now, and there's very little funding provided by the city in order to help those people. And lastly, I will reiterate a point from Chris, and I think the city should reject all increases in police funding and other carceral systems because it's well known that St. Louis has more per capita police than like 90% of cities in the whole United States. And having that many police hasn't curbed crime in the city. So I think we should reject all increases in police funding, and so that we can redirect those fundings towards providing resources to towards areas of the city so that people can actually get the help that they need.
Thank you, Mr. Perdue. Nathaniel King.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
You're welcome.
Thank you specifically to the Mayor, President, and Comptroller. I'm here to speak today about two topics. First, it makes me so sad that we have increased our juvenile detention officers by 14, spending $1.9 million, as Ms. Stanton mentioned. If we spend money locking our children up, instead of spending money to lock our children up, we need to spend that money on juvenile diversion. So is that the Office of Violence Prevention? We've heard lots about Prop S stuff today. However, the general fund monies aren't really being spent to help our children. When I think about when I look at what we're spending on after school programs, we're spending $1.2 million for public safety summer jobs and $0.7 million on police cadet programs. While these are probably good programs, they don't nurture our children and give them opportunities that everyone deserves, whether it be access to arts or anything else. So instead of hiring more juvenile detention facility employees, let's hire people to think about providing free universal summer programs for our children, 6 weeks of intensive opportunities to study arts or to explore other options. The other thing I want to talk about today is that we really need to provide raises for our city employees. The people who work in the city deserve to be paid for their jobs. And the fact that we are not increasing, we're not seeing any increase in the salaries for our city employees is really upsetting to me. So again, my name is Nathaniel King, and I really appreciate this time. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Ryan Barker.
Good morning. My name is Ryan Barker. I am the Chief Program and Policy Officer at the St. Louis Integrated Health Network, and I'm also a proud city resident for the last 22 years. IHN was established in 2003 as a group of safety net providers collaborating to improve access to care, enhance quality of care, achieve cost efficiencies, and optimize patient outcomes through integrated services. Since its founding, IHN evolved to become a healthcare intermediary. We are comprised of the community health centers in our region, hospital systems, public health departments, academic medical centers, and community-based organizations. We have implemented numerous programs and systems-level strategies to elevate community voice and advance health equity. I'm here today to speak in support of the City of St. Louis's Office of Violence Prevention and continued funding for this work. Violence is a health equity issue, and preventing violence is an important component of achieving equity in health and in communities. Preventing violence has tremendous value, not just in saving money and lives, but also to foster well-being, promote health equity, and strengthen our communities. Poverty, racism, housing, transportation, and a lack of educational and economic opportunities are among the fundamental determinants of poor health and a lack of safety. Inequities in the distribution of resources also perpetuate patterns of poor health. The disproportionate impact of violence in some communities affects all of us. The Office of Violence Prevention understands that violence is complex, and the combination, frequency, and severity of risk factors influence whether problems develop. An overwhelming number of risk factors for violence have accumulated in some of our communities without resiliency factors to protect against violence. Some communities and groups are far more exposed to the poor neighborhood conditions that give rise to violence and other health inequities. One of these specific groups of residents includes those who have been justice involved. IHN has a criminal justice initiative and specifically has a program called the Reentry Community Linkages Program that is supported by the Office of Violence Prevention. Relink was designed to provide a comprehensive system of coordination and navigation efforts that are culturally, linguistically, and trauma-informed. The purpose is to improve health outcomes for minority individuals reentering community from the city jail. We use community health workers who help to navigate clients through the health and social service system by bridging gaps to help clients stay connected to supports and services, promote their health and wellness, facilitate continuity of care, advocate, coach, empower, and support the clients in their own goals. Assisting clients with employment, transportation, housing, health insurance, mental health, substance use treatment, and accessing healthcare services are all ways to build resiliency and reduce violence in our communities. IHN supports the continued funding for the Office of Violence Prevention and its important work. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ryan. Inez Bordeaux.
Technically it's still morning. So good morning, Board of E&A. Happy to see you. Always happy to show up and make my voice heard during these hearings. My name is Inez Bordeaux. Today, my relevant hats are the Deputy Director of Community Collaborations at Arch City Defenders. I am the committee woman of the 3rd Ward. I am also a member of the Re-envisioning the Workhouse Steering Committee. I stand in opposition of this budget until we take another hard look at it. I don't want to see any increases for SLMPD. It seems like the city is going to be facing a double-digit $26 million shortfall. Let's take the money from the police department. We can start with ShotSpotter, the Real-Time Crime Center, the leftover vacant positions inside of the SLMPD. We've watched just in the last year how that budget has ballooned from being a pig to outright being a hog. So we can start there. I also want to ensure before this budget passes that we are defunding any possible plan to put unhoused people at the workhouse, to put tiny sheds at the workhouse, to spend millions of dollars to remediate a toxic piece of land so that we can move one of the most vulnerable populations in St. Louis to the workhouse. I want to make sure that there is not a cent anywhere in this budget that would go to that ill-advised, inhumane, and unconscionable plan. Some things that I would like to see funded in this budget that I don't recall seeing are the Memorial Community Resource Hub that the Re-envisioning the Workhouse plan or report calls for, a place where people can get all of their needs met all in one place. It includes a plan for transitional housing, including the 20% of kids that live that go to SLPS that are currently unhoused. This is a much better idea than a proposed plan to move unhoused people to the workhouse, because are we going to move unhoused children to the workhouse? I hope that's not part of the plan. I would also like to see services for youth fully funded. I want to see every community center fully funded, fully staffed, including enough lifeguards for all of the pools to open. Because one thing we have learned is that we can depend on 3 things during the summer in St. Louis: death, taxes, and for downtown business owners to complain about children enjoying their summer in our city streets. I would also lastly like food security for the unhoused students that go to SLPS funded. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Bordeaux. That concludes all of the testimony. Ms. Davis, do you have any emails that were sent to you?
Yes, ma'am. I have an email from Carol from House Pet Clinic staff. She wanted to be added in. She said she didn't understand the instructions on how to get on today. So if you can add in her, that would be great.
Anybody else?
No, ma'am.
I'm sorry, and what's the name?
Her name is Carol, and she's from the House Pet Clinic staff.
I do not see Carol online or in any of the rooms.
Neither do I.
It's probably Andrea or Bonnie Bone for Curl House Pet Clinic, probably one of them staff members.
If they can come on and come off mute and identify themselves, we will listen to their testimony. Okay, going once. I'm sorry, Robin, you said that their name that would be under who?
I know Andrea is one. I know Bonnie Bohm, she emailed and said that she didn't get the instructions. She didn't understand the instructions clearly. She was in here. I know she was in there because she heard me testify. So I don't know if
Bonnie is no longer online.
Okay.
Neither of those names are in the attendees.
Okay. All righty. Well, we have come to the end of our public testimony for the fiscal year 2025 operating budget. Are there any closing comments from either Comptroller Green or President Green?
Yes, good morning, Madam Mayor and all of our participants today. I want to thank you all for participating in this process and giving your comments regarding the budget and giving your comments regarding the needs of the citizens of St. Louis. I agree that we cannot do enough for providing affordable housing, for providing recreational opportunities for our youth. And we continue to try to budget for those things and to do more. And I support doing more. I support all of the comments regarding the Office of Violence Prevention, and I encourage the office to continue the good work that has come to help support many organizations that provide help to our youth and to our individuals who are marginalized in our community. So again, thank you all for participating. Those who did speak, thank you. And those of you who did not speak, I want to thank you for participating in the process.
President Green, you are approved to go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I first just want to echo the comments from the comptroller and really thank everybody who took the time to come out today. I also appreciate the feedback on ways that we can improve as ENA in the future, perhaps to make these meetings a little bit more accessible to folks who are working during the day and maybe can't have their voices heard. And so I want to make sure that I recognize those comments and am willing to work on ways that in the future we can enhance the ability for the public to participate. I also am in agreement with additional funding needed for homeless services and affordable housing in particular. This is an issue we continue to hear about at the Board of Aldermen from our constituents is just number of folks who are really feeling the squeeze. And when we pass the impacted tenants fund, we recognize that $100,000 to $160,000 a year is not going to be really what we need to address the concerns and prevent folks from being unhoused. And so I do support looking for ways that we can increase the impacted tenants fund and increase funding to affordable housing in general, so that we're getting to a place where folks are not getting onto the streets in particular. And then the last thing I'll say is, year after year, it seems like we're hearing concerns about capacity at our animal shelter, and also just want to recognize that and thank the folks who came out and year after year to discuss that. And I understand that there are some, I think, proposals in the works, and am hopeful that we will figure out some ways to increase capacity for our animal shelter and make sure that there is space available when strays are found, when animals need to be taken to a place. We can't always rely on community members to keep dogs in their backyards and things like that. So just wanted to reiterate what I heard today. Really want to thank everybody for coming out, and know that the Board of Aldermen and my office is committed to continuing to work on a number of these issues that were brought forth today. So I appreciate everyone.
Thank you, President Green. I'd like to conclude with a few remarks as well, and then we will adjourn. For those who did not make it today for testimony, please know that there will be other opportunities to testify on the budget, as the budget will be going to the Board of Aldermen, and there will be plenty of opportunities through the Budget and Public Employees Committee to show up and testify. So stay tuned to the city's website for those meeting notices, and feel free to voice your opinions there. There were a lot of concerns about public safety and the police budget. This year, the police budget is flat. There's no increase, there are no cuts. And I cannot stress enough that the addition of the Office of Violence Prevention, once funded through ARPA funds, is now funded through the regular budget through use tax and general revenue funds, and now is a permanent part of the budget funded at $9 million this year. Before, we didn't have an Office of Violence Prevention before 2022. And now we have an Office of Violence Prevention that's working with community partners, some of whom were on the call today, to focus on prevention and intervention in very dangerous circumstances. We believe that the Office of Violence Prevention is essential to keeping St. Louisans safe, especially our young people, how they have worked with our rec centers to keep rec centers open late on the weekends, how they've worked with other young youth organizations to provide opportunities for our youth and young people to be safe and have fun and just be kids. And so look forward to more of that work this year and in the years beyond. And shameless plug, the OVP kickback is tomorrow. And I can't remember what, in Fairgrounds Park. So if you're around Fairground Park, join the Office of Violence Prevention for their monthly kickback at Fairgrounds Park. On animal shelters, we have put an additional $2 million in the budget this year for animal shelters. We realize that there have to be a lot of changes there. When I first got in office, there was one person working in the animal department, and now there are 9. They are almost fully staffed. On our unhoused, we have provided more money for our unhoused services through ARPA and through this budget than previous administrations, and we will continue to take care of our most vulnerable people. On affordable housing, we know the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we have to fund it at a floor of $5 million. We have increased funding again to $6.5 million. We want to thank all of the volunteer organizations that helped with the vulnerable situation at the Heritage House. That was a really horrific situation for our seniors, and we worked really hard with volunteer organizations, with other nonprofits, such as the Urban League, to make sure that no senior went without housing and no senior wasn't taken care of. On aging, the budget is $17.6 million. It's actually a little bit of an increase from the previous year. So those services will continue to be funded. and every employee will continue to get their 1.5% merit raise. Because we are facing a whole host of threats to our budget due to the firefighter pension bill override and the threats to our earnings tax, we had to have a very conservative budget this year and hold back approximately $26 million due to the threat of the earnings tax from the Missouri legislature. And also, if you're on this call and you want to make a difference, call the Missouri legislature and tell them to keep their hands off of our earnings tax. And also on the recreation division, we realized that our rec centers are aging, and we allocated an additional $1.3 million to the capital budget to fix the air conditioners in some of the rec centers. We continue to spend on our summer youth programs, also through Slate, which isn't a part, well, it is a part of this budget, but gets a lot of grant funding. So we want to make sure that our kids have a job. There's a link tree on our website for all of our summer programs. We have free summer camps at all of our rec centers, and so we invite you to take advantage of that. And finally, one more point on our unhoused. We need a regional strategy. We need a regional strategy to take care of our unhoused because having the burden fall on the city of St. Louis solely on our shoulders is not sustainable. So I will be leaning on our regional leaders to come up with a plan for a regional strategy to take care of our unhoused, just like we did with the regional crime strategy. So again, we want to thank everybody for your comments and your testimony today. And we want to thank everybody for coming out and spending your time with us. At this point, I don't think we have to have an adjournment because this was just a public hearing, but we want to again thank everybody and have a wonderful weekend, and God bless. Thank you.